has Docker installed, we have a local IP of 192.168.1.35. That's important because if we're going to set up custom routing, this will effectively be the gateway for our Docker network. Already, whether it's on our, this is going to be the 190 that are static route right now, but we get using Docker underlie some cross we're work right because A2 regard items and we Welcome back everybody to linuxacademy.com. My name is Terry, and in today's video we continue our exploration of all things Docker. So as we talked about before, we're into our use case. What we're going to do is we're going to be utilizing everything that we've learned up until now in order to set up our environment. So as we talked about, as long as you've got Docker and Git installed on a physical or virtual machine, that's where we're going to start. We're starting completely from scratch. So where we're downloading images or setting up items that'll take significant time to do, of course, we will cut that out of video and post-processing so that we don't have to sit here and watch the system download files. So the first thing that we want to start with is, since we're running a CentOS 7 system locally, we're going to build our Docker web farm on CentOS 6. Again, taking advantage of the fact that we can deploy on platforms that are different than the underlying host operating. The configured repository that we have, the Docker Hub, and it will look for an image meeting the name CentOS and CentOS 6 and pull it down. So we'll go ahead and pause this video and we'll come right back once it's done. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to treat this as if we would any new CentOS system that we would set up. We're going to begin installing services on it. And in order to do that, we need to launch an instance. So we're just going to interactively launch an instance of our container. We're going to do a docker run -i-t and CentOS, CentOS 6, and we'll launch a bin bash prompt. And we're going to connect to it directly from the container. We're not worried about a name at this point in time. We can refer to it with our container ID, but in the future we'll start naming things as we begin to build our environment. So the and then we're going to grab that RPM and then we'll install it. So now that we have wget, we'll just do once the install is finished, a wget and then the RPM location. And then once we have if it does not, it will install it. So we're going to do we need. And then once we have the RPM, all we need to do is run a dash UVH. And a UVH will upgrade it if it exists, but if it does not, it will install it. So we're going to do the EPO release. Okay, so we've done our yum update, and now there's a number of things to a new base image that will. We're root. Let's vim, or let's find out first of all where service is installed. So service is installed in SBin. And the reason that that's important is when you're adding anything to the bash RC file, you want to be sure that, because based on the distribution, the path may not be exported before the bash RC begins to run. So you may have, if you're calling, for example, service and SBin hasn't been configured to be in the path yet, if you don't have that path in the file, then the service won't actually start. In our case, we're just going to make sure that we pass in the full path. So let's do a VI on dash bash RC. And we're going to go down here to the bottom and show bin. And the reason that that's important is when you're adding anything to the bash RC file, you want to be sure that, because based on the distribution, the path We're going to go down here to the bottom, and we're simply going to add the services that we want to start. And we're going to say sbin service httpd Now that means the next time do a Docker commit, and here's our container ID. And let's call this CentOS 6, and we'll call it base web. And that should build a new image that will then be called CentOS 6 base web that's committed to from the container, which has all the services, the EPEL repository, and our bash scripts from it committed to it. So let's go ahead and clear, and we do a Docker images, and now we have a CentOS 6 base web. So just in order to test that, and again, we're not going to refer to a name in this case because we're not going to make any changes in this video. We just want to be sure that the services have started on our base web new base image container that we will inherit from. So do a Docker run-i-t, and again, interactive on our TTY, and then we need to say CentOS 6 base web, and we're going to start bin bash. And then once we get it, and our OpenSSH server is an unrecognized service, so we'll need to go fix what that is. So if we wanted to start OpenSSH server, we would need to do So that's what we actually need to do. So now let's go back to Docker images. And the reason that this is good practice for us to go through is now we can say Docker RMI CentOS 6 and base web. And what this will do is actually, it's going to error out here in a second, but this will remove the base image that we incorrectly committed our container to. Because we have a container that's reliant on it. So we do a docker rm, grab the container that relies on it, which is the container that we just created. And once we remove that container, then we should be able to remove the base underlying image. So, do we have to go and start another instance of our container based on CentOS, CentOS 6 that we actually committed and used for our new base web image? No, because we have the container reference ID and we haven't removed that container. All we have to do is recommit that container if we want to a new base web. But let's go fix it first. So how do we do that? We can do a docker start, and then this particular container ID will then start that container, and then we can do a docker attach to the same container. And it's just like we had just been in this. So all we did was restart that container. And in fact, if we do a cd and we vi on bash rc, we go right in here and fix OpenSSH server, which, as we now know, is not the service that we need to restart. So SSHD and now we can exit this container, and now we can commit, docker commit the container again, and all we're doing is rerunning exactly what we did before, only this time the base base web image that is contained by the container commitment will have the correct changes in it. So now if we do a Docker image, we should see that our CentOS base web is back. We do a docker run -i-t in our CentOS 6 base web and bin and bash. And now what we should see is that SSHD and HTTPD are started up. So our container is running Apache on an IP address. And in our next video, we'll begin to set up how we're going to interact with the code that we decide to deploy to our containers in our web farm. But for the initial, let's build a quick image and get it committed, my name is Terry for Linux Academy. There are a number of different site templates that you can download completely free, as long as you leave the copyright notice on the site as it's indicated in the site. So we're going to take one that's easy for us to review and make. Us to review and make changes to, which happens to be called, for whatever reason, Blue Freedom. As you can see, it's blue, and I guess it's free. So we're going to download this particular zip file. Our CentOS 6 base web, so we can create an actual container that we can share that and equal OS bin bash. Now, because this base web has an SSH daemon, but in this case we won't need to do 17 18.0.6 currently gives us the web server. And the web server in our case isn't going to do us a whole lot of good because if we do a df-h, we don't have anything mounted here that says that in var www.html, which happens to be the default site location for Apache, it's not going to be serving us any content. .html, which happens to be the default site